Good morning, 8th grade. First of all, this is Friday morning for me when I'm making this video, which is for Monday for you all. You should be taking your test right now. So keep in mind that. This video is for the entire week. As of right now, keeping in mind this is Friday, but yesterday Mr. Hess told Miss Barnett that he thinks we will be able to come back to school on Thursday. So I am, for right now, going to make this video with the assumption that we will be back in school on Thursday. That is very likely to change, but you know me, I like to be optimistic. So I grabbed the wrong book here. Let me dig the other one out from underneath the computer. Okay, first of all, due Friday, I told you on last Friday, that due this Friday is the Geography Project 16. Now I'm going to put it in the video talking about it. Geography Project 16, you find the information for Geography Project 16 in this book. So you turn back to page 2829. Yeah, all the information is on page 28 and 29 of this book. 28, West Indies fact sheet. 29, the map. It tells you that you're going to color the Greater Antilles yellow, the Lesser Antilles green, and the Bahamas red. So you'll look back here, and it shows you the Bahamas, Greater Antilles and Lesser Antilles. Then you'll number, just like I did, 1, Havana, 2, Kingston, Jamaica, 3, Port-au-Prince, 4, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Notice there's nothing for Dominican Republic because that's not a separate thing. That's part of this, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Santo Domingo is the city in the Dominican Republic. So Dominican Republic's not going to get a different number. 5, San Juan, Puerto Rico. 6, okay, it's backwards for me to see on my phone, so bear with me here. 6 is Nassau, the Bahamas. 7, Port-au-Prince, Spain, which is in Trinidad and Tobago. So Tobago doesn't get a separate number. 8, Antigua and Barbuda. 9, Dominica. 10, St. Lucius. This is all out of whack for me. Then 11, Guadalupe. 12, Martinique. 13, Barbados. 14, Netherlands Antilles. 15, Virgin Islands. Then you come down here, 16, Pacific. No, that's Atlantic Ocean. 17, Gulf of Mexico. You get the point. I'm tired of trying to read backwards. Really would be helpful if you would number them like I did and then number them on here. It would make it easier for you when you have to study this for future tests. Makes it easier for me to grade because these are going to be tiny, squish, because they're little islands with lots of different stuff on it. Then, like I told you on this page, everything on this entire page has one answer except for map study number 4. Name the nations that occupy Hispaniola. To figure that out, you got to go back and look at this map and see that this says Hispaniola and see what 2 countries are on Hispaniola there. So that's Geography Project 16, which is due Friday. So don't forget that. As of right now, like I'm saying, if we do get to come back to school in person, you'll just turn it in to me in person. Keeping my fingers crossed, that's the way it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen that way, then you'll have to attach to LMS a really, really, really good picture. Okay. The other thing that will be Friday is the quiz I've been telling you about, where you're going to have to write the presidents. There'll be a list of 22. Some of the presidents will be missing. Some of them will be there. I'm not going to tell you which ones are going to be missing. You just got to know the first 22 presidents in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's 10 of them missing. So it'll be just like any other quiz, a 10-question quiz. But it'll seem like a 22-question quiz because you got to know all 22 of them. Actually, the first 21, because I will tell you Grover Cleveland is put on there. So you need to know through 21. Chester Arthur's not put on there. Grover Cleveland is. That's as many hints as I'll give you. All right, so I'm going to say George Washington, John Adams. Remember, you gave me both names with him. You can Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams. You got to give me all three names there because John Adams, John Quincy Adams. You got to keep them separate. So John Adams, got to give me full name. John Quincy Adams, you got to give me full name. The rest of them, you could get by with just last names. So George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, James K. Polk, Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan, Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Johnson, Ulysses S. Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, James A. Garfield, Chester Arthur. You cannot give me first names for any of these guys. A lot of them have very common first names that more than one president has. You can give me only last names with the exception of John Adams and John Quincy Adams. Both of them I got to have full names because they're father, son, and their names are almost the same. Okay, so that is the two things that are due Friday. Of course, you'll have simple solutions every day this week. You know, today you'll do 111. Tomorrow you'll do 112. You'll check 111, 112 tomorrow. Wednesday, do 113. If we're back in school on Thursday, we'll check 113 in class on Thursday, and you get the point. Okay, so we're starting a new chapter today. Chapter 19, The Rise of Big Government. I'm just really quickly going to kind of jump through this chapter, point a couple of things out. It's going to be your job to read it over the next 3 days because it's a pretty short chapter. Chapter 19. In the 1928 presidential election, prohibition was the main issue. The Democrats nominated New York Governor Alfred Smith, a native of New York City, who opposed prohibition. He was against prohibition, wanted it repealed, wanted to allow the sale of alcohol. And so the Republicans nominated Secretary of Commerce Herbert Hoover, a self-made millionaire from a small town in Iowa who favored prohibition. The American people showed their support of traditional values by voting for Herbert Hoover, who won by 6 million popular votes. However, the confidence that the American people placed in the wealth and prosperity of the Roaring Twenties came crashing down in 1929. With the collapse of the stock market in October, a Great Depression hit, which characterized the next decade of American history. And so it goes through and it talks about the causes of the Great Depression, the stock market collapsing, buying stuff on credit, and now they have to pay back everything that they had bought on credit, the collapsing of the stock market. By the way, president cards will get caught up on after spring break. Let's see here. Bank failures, it just all kind of snowballed. As one thing started to fall apart economically, another thing started to fall, which caused another thing to fall. And so it just kept snowballing. Also, somewhere in here is the Great Dust Bowl out in the Midwest, which affected the farmers. Yet another thing. It's just the snowball. As one thing collapses economically, another thing collapses economically. Your job to read 19.1 about all of it. Hoover thought that this was horrible, but thought that it should be taken care of not by the government, but by private individuals, churches, communities, that the big government, federal government, should stay out of it. 305, President Hoover felt that families, churches, and charities and neighbors should look after the needs of the unemployed. Some people accused Hoover of lacking compassion for the needy, but no one understood the needs of suffering people more than the great humanitarian. After World War I, Hoover had supervised the vast relief of millions of Europe. So, the thing to keep in mind here, too, is ABACA does not try to hide the fact that they don't believe in big government. And that they don't like FDR. They don't, because FDR was very much a believer in big government. And they like Hoover because Hoover does not believe in big government and believes that instead of the government fixing things, that the people should come in and help take care of each other whenever possible. Then on 306 is where it talks about the Dust Bowl. Then propaganda on page 306, where the writer, in this case, they point out Steinbeck, tries to make you believe something. Don't forget to read the blue box there on page 307 about the grapes of wrath in Russia. Life in the Depression. Socialist sympathizers, of course. Socialism is increasingly kind of rearing its head in America, as some people think that's the solution to problems. Life in the Depression. Depends on what you read as to exactly the picture that you get as far as the Depression. You know, some people really struggled and really had a difficult time during the Depression. Some people it didn't affect as much. ABACA kind of points out that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, wasn't as bad as some people try to make it seem. You know, I think it's family by family type situation. Then 19.2 starts talking about FDR, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal. FDR becomes president. He comes in with a New Deal, which he's going to do the opposite of Hoover. He's going to come in with lots of big government programs to fix everything. Some people say that FDR is what saved us from the Great Depression. Some people say we came out of the Great Depression because the war started. And war means factories have to start working to produce stuff, and it gets financial manufacturing and everything going again. I'll leave that up to you all. I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut. Be sure to read that blue box up there. Eleanor Roosevelt was huge, hugely important as part of FDR's presidency. As the first wife, FDR had been stricken by polio, and so he was in a wheelchair. So she did a lot of the traveling, speaking for him. Another thing to point out there on page 309 is the fireside chats. He was, as we've talked about, as technology increases and improves, it affects all areas of life, including things like the presidency. And so Coolidge was the first one to really be heard on the radio of the 20s. Now we're into the 30s, and FDR is giving these fireside chats, which are supposed to be like he's talking to the people like they're sitting around a fireside, having a conversation about what's going on. He's the first president to use the radio to the extent that he used it, because it's relatively new technology at this point. Goes on and talks about different government programs like the Tennessee Valley Authority, all kinds of different programs, which are going to show up on quizzes and tests here. 19.3, the New Deal continues talking about these government programs, Social Security, labor unions, foreign policy. He is the one that recognizes communist Russia. President Roosevelt took important steps in regard to foreign policy. Although diplomatic relations had been severed between the U.S. and Russia since the communist Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, Roosevelt went to trade with Russia. In November 1933, the U.S. recognized the communist government in Russia, which is the first time that had happened. In 1935, the U.S. signed treaties of international cooperation with 6 republics in Latin America, which is the Good Neighbor policy. During the 1930s, not everything was about the Great Depression. In 1932, the news centered on 2 aviators, Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart. People anguish over the kidnapping and murder of Charles Lindbergh's infant son. The Lindbergh kidnapping was the biggest human interest story of the decade. In response, Congress passed the Lindbergh Law, which established the death penalty in certain cases of interstate kidnapping. Amelia Earhart became the first woman pilot to pilot an airplane across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1937, Earhart was again in the news when her plane vanished somewhere in the South Pacific. which is part of the whole conspiracy theory, whatever, with the Bermuda Triangle. Not going down that rabbit hole, but just throwing that out there, that some people say that's what happened. On May 6, 1937, the German Zeppelin, I just made up a whole new word, the German Zeppelin, it's well, if I was here, I'd show you a picture of it. But it's like an airship thing, but it's the long, skinny thing. Looks kind of like a balloon, one of the long balloons. You can Google it and get a picture of it. But it burned and exploded and burned near Lakehurst, New Jersey, killing 36 people. It's kind of like the things that you see sometimes above like football stadiums, that long ovally shaped thing. Anyway, many consider the crash of the Hindenburg to be the most dramatic event of the decade because the radio reporter was on the scene to give a live broadcast of the accident. And then, of course, it talks about people who don't agree with the New Deal. Brain Trust, which is the group of people who are going to help FDR with the whole New Deal, which is also going to be on Quiz's test. And that's pretty much that chapter. So you'll have a simple solutions quiz on Tuesday, which will be open book, and you'll have a quiz on quiz 34 on 19.2, 19.3, which will be open book on Wednesday. You'll have a president quiz on Friday. So that is the week in a nutshell. And don't forget also that Geography Project 16 is due on Friday. See you later.